Hello crafty friends, I'm Lien from Studio Kato and I'm so happy to be back with another video today. Today I had a ton of fun with the new Granny Squares bundle from Concord 9th. I made 4 cards with this beautiful Turnabout stamp set and I really wanted to share them with you. I loved the color options and all of the fun you could have with this background. Now, if you are unfamiliar with the magic that is Turnabout stamps from Concord 9th, I will show you how to get that done at the start of this video right now. But if you want to skip that part, if you already know how they work, I will leave a comment or a note in the description below to the timestamp of the video where you can skip to if you just want to go to the assembly of the cards. Each Turnabout stamp set comes with this acetate guide. You just put your stamp down on top of it like it would stamp on the paper, so the good side facing down on top of the acetate, and you just line each image up with the black stamping on the acetate. And this, for me, especially because I really don't like lining things up, takes the longest. So once you've lined it up, you might as well stamp a bunch of backgrounds. Now, this is the magic. This is the all-in-one Turnabout jig from Concord 9th. You buy this separately, but you don't need one for every single stamp set. You just need one and it lasts forever. It is sticky, so there is a piece of acetate over top of it, and for this step, you want that acetate covering the sticky part. This is where you line up the cross on the acetate guide of the stamp set. You line it up with the cross, the white cross on the jig. That's how you put it in your MISTI, and that's how you close your MISTI and have your stamp aligned for all of the backgrounds your heart desires. And then you take off the acetate guide from the stamp set and also the acetate piece covering the sticky part of the Turnabout jig. I really love this Turnabout jig. There was a way before to make things work without a jig, but I could never do it. I could never get my Turnabout stamps to line up just right, and this is the magic piece that I was missing. So yeah, it is sticky, the Turnabout jig, and it does have guidelines to align your A2 panels. You could align it facing up or in portrait mode or in landscape mode, whatever you want. And then you just ink up your stamp. In the corner of your Turnabout jig, there are numbers. So in the upper right corner, I think, is the number you are on right now. So for me, it's covered by the magnet right now, but it should say the number 1. And then you turn it and it turns to the number 2. So that's a great way to make sure you're on the right step. For this stamping, I am using grapefruit ink, I am using lemongrass ink, lakefront, which is such a stunning color, and I definitely don't use it enough. And then the final one will be midnight. I stamped a bunch of backgrounds with this Turnabout stamp, and I haven't even used them all today. I just used 4 of them. On my blog, I will list all of the ink colors I used for the cards I made. There are some backgrounds that I stamped with VersaFine Clair inks because they just stamp like a dream every single time. Concord 9th inks stamp really nicely too, but I had an issue because for the first background, this one, I noticed that all of my ink cubes were pretty dry, and then I re-inked them all, and then they were a little bit too wet to stamp. So it was a bit of a I don't want to say struggle because I do like the way Concord 9th inks stamp usually. I don't want to give them a bad rep in any way, but yeah, I was struggling a little bit because I inked them up a little bit too well. So here are all the backgrounds I made, and some of those I will turn into cards now. Now this is the first one. I kept it really simple. I just trimmed down my background panel. So I stamped an A2 panel first with this with these colors, and I just trimmed it down. And then I am going to cover this A2 size card with a Lemongrass cardstock panel as well, because that's one of the inks I use, and it will fit really nicely with the background I stamped. I'm gonna be using Barely Art Precision Craft glue for all of my gluing today. I love this glue. It has a really nice fine tip, but it flows really nicely. I really enjoy this glue. I am backing my granny square background with 2 layers of scrap cardstock just to give it a little bit of a lift, but not too much. It's gonna be a lot sturdier this way than if I use foam tape. I don't like using foam tape on the back of large panels. I think it always creases in the mail, so this just works for me using up my scrap cardstock. The super large sentiment I'm using is from the Quintessential Scripty Sayings die set from Concord 9th. They have 2 die sets in this style, and I really love these sentiments. They are so good. I love this style of large scripty sentiment. I taped it in place on this panel first because I knew I wanted to trim those little ends off. I just wanted this to be just right to fit my granny square background. So I just taped it in place, and then I used my scissors to trim off the excess, and that way it's gonna fit really nicely on the panel, and I don't have to worry about trimming it down once it's already glued together, because I'm using foam tape as well to lift this sentiment. Teeny tiny slivers of foam tape, but anyway. Once something is propped up on a panel, I find it a lot harder to trim off the excess nicely. So I am trying to just do that before I glue it down, and taping it in place with some purple tape helps me. I'm finishing this off with a couple of embellishments. These are from Pinkfresh Studio. I think they're I forgot which color I used, but I'll try to list it on my blog and in the supply list down below. It's been too long since I made a video. I also couldn't think of the name for Barely Art Precision Craft glue earlier, so I'll have to practice a little more. Once again, these are all the backgrounds I used or I made, and this is the coordinating die set to the Granny Square Turnabout stamp. Now, the smallest square in that would perfectly cut out one of these granny squares. However, I think maybe it's not faster, but it feels nicer for me to just fussy cut them out. I feel more involved with the crafting process myself if I'm fussy cutting instead of just die cutting a bunch of stuff. And then I am going to pair this granny square background with the Knitting Together die set. This is an older die set from Concord 9th. There is a coordinating stamp set as well for lovely little sentiments that I'll also use. And I just love this. I haven't had a chance to use this die set yet, but it popped up in my head as soon as the Granny Square Turnabout stamp set came out. I just had to pair them together because I'm a crochet girly. I don't knit a lot, and technically this is for knitting. There's knitting needles, and the sentiments are all sort of knitting related. So I'm really happy they came out with a crochet stamp set as well. And in the coordinating die set for the granny squares, there is a crochet hook too. So yeah, I'm very happy as a crochet girly. I cut this ball of yarn out of Pink Lemonade cardstock from Concord 9th, and then I'm ink blending on top of this with Sweet Pea ink. Now you can tell that this ink blending was very intense. Again, I had just re-inked my ink cubes and inked them a little bit too well. I'm gonna assemble this, and for things where I'm not entirely sure how to assemble them because the yarn is overlapping in different ways here, I just like to keep the packaging beside me. I know you can't really tell, but it's very clear on the packaging where each piece goes. So yeah, I just like to keep the packaging beside me if I have to assemble die cuts with lots of pieces. Now, if you can tell on the packaging as well, there is a label that says congrats, and it's meant to go over the ball of yarn, but I thought I would be able to stamp a different sentiment in there, but it was too long for the label. So I did stick with the congrats for the label stamp. You will see that in a second, but I am going to use the second sentiment that I wanted to stamp on the inside of the card. So for this card, I am really pulling my weight for the inside of the card as well. I don't usually decorate the inside of the card, but I thought it would be fun for this one. I'm using Versamark ink to stamp the label detail. There are two options here. There are curls and some heart type thingies. It's fun little details for the label. And then I'm just stamping congrats as well in the center. This is wheat cardstock from Concord 9th. That's their craft cardstock. I really love craft cardstock, especially for fall and Christmas. I feel like it's such a cozy color. I feel like we don't use brown enough in card making as a substitute for like gray or black. Sometimes those are a little bit too harsh, and this is so much warmer. I am embossing this with Wow Bright White Super Fine Embossing Powder. I love this embossing powder. I am also using the Wow embossing tool or heat tool. It's just, they always work for me. I have a huge jar of this Bright White Super Fine and their clear gloss because those I definitely use the most. But yeah, Wow embossing powders are incredible. I'm going to die cut that label out with the coordinating die, and I'm using my Spellbinders Platinum Scout die cutting machine. It's such a teeny tiny one, but the plates are quite long, so I am really enjoying this die cutting machine. It's the first smaller die cutting machine I have, and it die cuts like a dream. And I feel like, especially for sentiment, sentiment labels and sentiment strips, it doesn't shift around as much. For my larger die cutting machine, the Spellbinders Platinum, I have the Platinum 8, I think. The sentiment strips, they tend to shift around on me, and then they're not die cut perfectly, and I don't love it. So I'm really enjoying the Platinum Scout. Now this is going to be my background, and I'm just seeing if those two center squares will be covered up by the ball of yarn, and they will be, so I won't be adhering them down. I might save those for another project or save them for a year and then eventually decide to throw them in the bin anyway. But I feel like they would be wasted anyway if I would adhere them down on this card where they wouldn't be seen. I have lined everything up really nicely, and then I'm using Glad Press and Seal to pick everything up. This is, people in the US are probably familiar with this. For Europeans, this is pretty new. At least to me it was. I only learned about it through card making. I don't think we can find it in regular stores here, so I got it off Amazon. But if you just use it for card making, a roll of this will last you a lifetime, I think. I don't think I've really made a dent in mine. Half of the time I forget it exists in my craft room, but it is a really nice tool to have because you can pick up all of those pieces. They stick to the press and seal. It's basically cling wrap, but it actually holds the pieces here. And I just put foam tape behind all of the squares except for the center ones, and then I press them down onto my A2 card. Once I'm happy with the placement, I will check it before really pressing it in place. If I'm not happy with it, I can always pull it up again. Even with the foam tape, but yeah. And then once I'm happy with it, I just peel off the press and seal. Do be a little bit careful with this, and don't use it on... If you had just inked these granny squares, I wouldn't use press and seal. I made the backgrounds the night before I put this card together. Press and seal does pull up the cardstock sometimes, especially if it's heavily inked, if it's a little wet still. Then I'm using 2 layers of foam tape to make sure that ball of yarn pops up on top of that background, and I'll add in the little string as well. And I put up the crochet hook too. This is cut from champagne cardstock from Concord 9th, which I think is a really nice soft metallic one. It's not too harsh silver or gold, it's somewhere in between. It's a really nice color. So I'll just glue that down. I'm only really adhering it over the ball of yarn, making sure not to cover up the congrats sentiment. And then I am going to finish the inside of the card. Now off camera, I did make a second ball of yarn that will come into play here. But I'm really just stamping the sentiment, which is, it's your birthday, have a ball, because it's balls of yarn. I love it. That's why I wanted to use it. I think it would look better on the label of the ball of yarn, but it doesn't fit on there, so that's a missed opportunity if you ask me. I am going to stamp this with a VersaFine Clair ink. Again, these inks stamp like a dream if you don't have them yet. They are pigment inks, I think. I only really use them for stamping, but they're especially great as well for better press. So this is the Monarch. It's a really nice purple, and I also used it in the stamping of this background. So the granny squares on this card are actually stamped with all VersaFine Clair inks, all of those pinks and purples. Then I'll just glue that ball of yarn into the inside of my card, and that's my card finished as well. I really love this one. I love how this turned out. It's so extra with all of the pink. I love it. The third card is a design that I repeated for a fourth card as well. I will show that in a picture too. But yeah, I love this pattern. It's just a simple pattern. I didn't get out the press and seal because sometimes it's just therapeutic for me to glue down every single piece separately. So this is an A2 panel, except it's a little bit shorter. I think it's 4.25 inches by 5.25 or 5 1/8 maybe. And then I just put foam tape behind all of those little tiles or granny squares, and I loved puzzling this together. I usually adhere my foam tape in long strips onto baking paper or parchment paper, whatever you have that is basically gonna let release like sticker paper. And that way I can trim it to size with scissors and not have it gunk up my scissors. I love that trick. So I cut triangles and squares to fit the pieces that I would use. And once I adhered some squares on my card, I already trimmed off the excess so I could use those pieces on other places, on other edges of the card, and complete the puzzle. This was honestly so fun to do. I probably am going to use up my other backgrounds in pretty much the same way. I am going to fussy cut the granny squares out and make this exact pattern and just put a sentiment on there because I love this pattern. It works really well. I really like it. So once I'm done adhering everything together, I am gonna put this back in my trimmer, in my paper trimmer, and trim off the rest of the excess as well and make sure there's no overhang. And then I'm gonna assemble the card. Now, I loaded this footage up in my editing program and saw that a bunch of it was missing, but it's really just me adhering sentiments down, so you're not missing much. But yeah, I must have pressed pause record and didn't remember to press record again. But yeah, so that's the background finished. And for the sentiments, I am using this Sending Trio bundle from Concord 9th. It was designed by Kristina Werner. I love her sentiment sets. You can also just get the stamp set or just get the die set, but they work really well together, so it's nice that they're available in a bundle too. I am stamping the comfort, so sending comfort, because I thought that worked really well with granny squares and crochet fabric. I am just stamping the comfort in VersaFine ink onto Grasshopper cardstock, because that's one of the inks I used in this background, the Grasshopper ink from Concord 9th. So I'll be white heat embossing this as well onto that Grasshopper cardstock. I am just gonna sprinkle on the white embossing powder. You've already seen me do this in this video, but yeah, I think embossing is still magic. I feel like we forgot about it a little bit with when foiling came out, but it still works. I just don't see it around as much. I'm going to also die cut this with a coordinating sentiment strip die that comes in the Sending Trio die set. So there is a nice sentiment strip die in there as well. And I'm going to die cut that too. And then just adhere it onto the card. Now, the one part that did record is the fun part of this card. You remember I trimmed that panel slightly shorter than A2. That's because I want a little strip of glitter to peek out from underneath there. This is Alex February Designs cardstock. It's from a specialty cardstock bundle. I really like this one. It's a really nice rose gold color. And I just glued that down and then propped up the background panel. I have the Sending in rose gold cardstock or copper cardstock from Altenew onto vellum, and that I glued down onto the granny squares, and then the comfort sentiment below that. I'm finishing it off with a couple of gems from Pinkfresh Studio. The Pinkfresh Studio embellishments are my go-to. They have so many options and in so beautiful colors, such beautiful colors. So yeah, check them out if you haven't already. This is the finished card, and I repeated that pattern on craft cardstock as well. And it's a little bit of a simpler card. It doesn't have a glitter cardstock strip, but I think it's just as beautiful. And it uses a sentiment from the Granny Square Turnabout stamp set. So these are all of the 4 cards I made with this Granny Square Turnabout stamp set from Concord 9th. I really enjoyed the cards here. I loved making them. I hope you liked them too. If you did, make sure to leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!